When you think of champagne, what comes to mind? Probably rolling French vineyards, right? Maybe a famous Benedictine monk. But what if I told you the real story of how champagne got its sparkle has a surprising and very, very British twist? Let's pop the cork on the real history. We all know the legend, don't we? The French monk Dom Perignon accidentally discovers sparkling wine and shouts that he's tasting the stars. It's the perfect romantic story for the world's most famous celebratory drink. Well, like a lot of great stories, this one might be a bit more myth than fact. The truth is a little more scientific, a little less of a happy accident, and, well, a lot more English. To really get this, we've got to rewind a bit, because for the early winemakers in the chilly Champagne region of France, those bubbles weren't something to celebrate. They were a flaw, a huge problem, a sign that the wine had gone wrong. They even called it the devil's wine. No joke. The pressure from this runaway fermentation was so unpredictable, it could literally turn a wine cellar into a minefield of exploding glass. So far from trying to create bubbles, winemakers were desperately trying to get rid of them. So if the French were trying to stop the fizz, who figured out how to control it? Well, for that, we have to cross the English Channel. See, the solution to this puzzle wasn't found in a French abbey. It was discovered in the halls of British science. The magic behind every bottle of bubbly is a process called secondary fermentation. It's really just a way of kickstarting a second round of fermentation inside a sealed bottle by adding a bit of sugar. Understanding how to do this on purpose? Well, that was the key to everything. And here's the kicker. The first person to scientifically document exactly how to intentionally make a wine sparkle by adding sugar wasn't French. He wasn't even a winemaker. He was an English doctor by the name of Christopher Merritt. Just look at the timeline. It tells the whole story. In 1662, Christopher Merritt stands up in front of the Royal Society in London and lays out the method for making sparkling wine. That's a full 6 years before Dom Perignon even starts his job at the Abbey, a job where his main goal was to stop the bubbles, not create them. The science, without a doubt, came from England first. But okay, knowing how to make bubbles is one thing. That's only half the battle. The other massive challenge was figuring out how to contain them without all your bottles blowing up. And yeah, you guessed it, the solution came from Britain. The difference really came down to fire. French glassmakers used wood-fired furnaces, which made for weaker, pretty inconsistent bottles. But the English were using coal-fired furnaces. These burned way hotter, creating glass that was significantly stronger and thicker. This industrial leap meant the English had bottles that could safely handle the intense pressure of sparkling wine, long before the French did. And it wasn't just about strength, it was about style. Early bubbly was, well, kind of cloudy and murky from all the yeast. The British consumer, though, they were very discerning. They wanted their wines crystal clear. And that powerful market demand is what pushed producers to invent the clever techniques needed to get all that sediment out. So, the British brought the science and the technology, but their biggest influence might have been on the taste itself. They completely shaped what we all think of as champagne today. See, originally, champagne was incredibly sweet. I mean, we're talking dessert wine sweet. But the British palate? Not so much. They preferred something much, much drier. That modern brut style that pretty much everyone drinks today, it lines up almost perfectly with that old-school British taste, not the original sweet French style. It's really that simple. The crisp, dry, brut style isn't the original. It was a total revolution in taste, and it was driven entirely by the commercial power of the British market. The French producers were smart. They just adapted to what their biggest customers actually wanted to buy. So let's recap. We've got the science, the glass, and the taste. But Britain was also essential in crafting champagne's very identity, as the ultimate drink of luxury and celebration. After the Restoration in 1660, the English aristocracy was in a mood to party, and this new fizzy wine became the go-to status symbol. Clever British merchants marketed it brilliantly, forever linking it with luxury. And that's the image that was then exported to the rest of the world, immortalized in everything from classic novels to James Bond films. Now, this deep connection isn't just some dusty old historical fact. It's a living, breathing relationship that has now, fascinatingly, come completely full circle. Even to this day, the UK is one of the biggest and most influential markets for champagne in the entire world. This centuries-long partnership of French artistry and British taste is still going strong. But here's the final amazing twist in the story. Today, England isn't just drinking sparkling wine, it's producing some of the absolute best in the world. We're talking about wineries like Nientember and Gusborne that are winning major international awards, often beating famous French champagnes in blind tastings. So what's their secret? Well, part of it is literally the ground beneath their feet. You see, those famous white cliffs of Dover? They're the end of a massive band of chalky soil that runs under the English Channel and pops back up, you guessed it, right in the Champagne region of France. They're growing the same grapes on the same soil. So that leaves us with a pretty fascinating question, doesn't it? After centuries of shaping champagne's science, its technology, its taste, and its brand, the British are now using that very same terroir to create a world-class rival. So, is English sparkling the new champagne? Or was it, in a way, part of the story from the very beginning? Something to think about the next time you hear that pop.